Okay, inside of this video, I want you to start to understand the concept of you will eat whatever is close by, okay? So your environment has a huge impact on your food choices. And if left unaddressed, all of your good intentions aren't going to count for anything unless you actually have the right things in place. So the first topic I'm going to touch on is the difference between your direct environment and your indirect environment. Now, both are important to be aware of. And obviously, you'll have more control over one than the other. Rather than focus on what you can't control, we're going to look at ways of actually controlling what you can control and making the best of the situations that you can't control, right? So direct environment would first of all be home. That is your kitchen. That is the lounge room. That is your bedroom. That is just basically anywhere inside of your house. Now, what I've found is over my time in the industry, working with heaps of people from different backgrounds, there is a direct link between people who are larger and the food that invades other areas of the home. If, for example, I'll give you an example. If you store chocolate and snacks in other areas other than the pantry, so hide it in your bedroom, hide it in your closet, hide it in the little section of the lounge that you can easily access, you're essentially making those kinds of foods easier to access. Okay, so the home is really important because that's where you're spending the most time, right? You're sleeping there for however many hours you sleep, right? But then also you're spending the morning there, and you're spending your evenings there, and then if you don't work right now, then you're spending all day there. So this is massive. That environment needs to be green, right? And we'll talk about that. The next environment we'll talk about is indirect. Now these are areas that you will probably not necessarily think of, but they also impact your food choices. So work is an environment, okay? The staff room, your typical areas of congregation, the canteen, if you're working at a school or working anywhere with the canteen, the vending machines, all of these things are in your environment. You need to be aware of them, right? Even down to the cafe that might be next door to your work, right? Your gym is another environment, okay? So vending machines at gyms, not necessarily the best choices in them. However, it could be easily confused as having the best choices in them, right? Because it's a gym. Also, I used to work in the gym with a bakery, just 2 or 3 doors down, right? And I would regularly see people come into the gym and train, and then go up to the village bakery, and then walk back to their car with a thick shake or something else that they've bought from the bakery, right? Which basically just throws all their effort out the window. Okay, so these are the environments that you need to be aware of. You've got your parents' house, friends' houses. Right, and they're all going to have an impact on your food. Megan happily admits that when she doesn't have a huge scary goal and she's a bit off track, she'll go over to her mum's house and she'll raid the pantry, right? And I'll probably raid it with her as well if I don't have a big enough, scary enough goal, right? Being aware of it is the important part. If you're not aware of it, then you can't fix it when you want to fix it, right? And this is going into a conversation on control. I'll leave that for another talk. Even the route you take home from work, home, gym, home is an environment as well. It's an indirect environment. And I've heard of clients working with colleagues of mine who would regularly stop in at a servo on the way home from school pickup and pick up an iced coffee, right? Because they aren't feeling like they've got cravings. It's the middle of the day, they haven't eaten much, and they need to pick me up, and they go and grab something like that. So you have all of these environments. The first environment that you need to fix is obviously your home. And we do that with the kitchen makeover. And you'll do that as one of your tasks in this pillar. But the main principle behind all of this is, rather than remove, what you need to do is you need to replace. Because in the space of any, or in the void, the space of any vacuum, something must fill the space. So if you remove something and there's a gap there and you don't replace it with something, then you're going to have a really hard time keeping that habit from coming back. And this is the cycle that a lot of mums will go through, is they'll remove something, but because they haven't fixed their environment, they haven't filled the void, then they just go back to what was easy and what they used to do and what they know. Okay, so the whole idea is to replace. And when you're replacing, you need to be mindful of a couple of things. When we look at replacing, you need to look at, what are you going to replace it with that is going to give you the same reward? Okay, and I'm going to show you the habit loop here for a second. Whenever you have a habit that you need to change or an environment that you need to change, you'll have a few things to consider. First of all, let's take that iced coffee as an example. The cue was school drop-off. The routine was servo, iced coffee, and the reward was big, old, yummy face and energy, right? Because that iced coffee would be full of energy. To replace the servo iced coffee with tuna and salad wouldn't be very sticky, would it? If you're used to getting this energetic hit of, you know, iced coffee and you look forward to that every single day, you're not going to have an easy time replacing it with something like a tuna salad, because first of all, it's not going to give you that immediate energy. And second of all, you're not going to really look forward to it every single day. You're probably going to dread it, right? So rather than replace it with something that you're going to dread, tuna salad was just the first thing that came to mind. How about change and replace it with something that is going to give you the same reward? Off the top of my head, a mocha liquid meal. Let's say you went to a little bit of effort and you put some mocha flavored protein powder into a drink, and you had some flax meal, you had some blueberries in there, and you buzzed it all up before you went, and you had that in the car instead of the iced coffee. Tell me now, what do you think? Do you think you would be able to easily replace this habit here with this habit over here? So we're getting rid of this one, and then we're adding this one here, right? There's a higher success rate that you're going to actually keep this habit, right? That's changing an indirect environment. If you're changing a direct environment and you have people around you who are used to certain things in the house, then you're also going to have sticking points. You're going to have sticking points with, well, messing with somebody else's normal, whether it's your kids, whether it's your husbands, okay, or anybody else who lives in your house. So it's in this stage where you're going to really have to have, well, you're going to have the talk, but you're also going to have to increase choice. So whenever you're trying to remove something from an environment of comfort, you always got to remember that as soon as you start to reduce choices, people feel like they're backed into a corner. So rather than reduce choice, you need to increase choice. You need to give more options. So for example, let's use ice cream. 4 litre of ice cream that comes in the shopping every single week, and it's in the frozen part of the freezer, right? If you're wanting to reduce the choice of having ice cream every night, you've got to give something back. I had a discussion with a client 6 months ago where she went to the extent of having her partner's chocolate on one shelf and then her shelf with no chocolate, and she just wouldn't look at her partner's chocolate until she was tired, stressed, and hungry, right? So I said to her, this is not ideal. You're gonna have to get chocolate out of the house completely. Oh, but my partner, she's pregnant. She's gonna not want to have, she's gonna want to have the chocolate in the house. Like, it was a real point of contention. So I said, well, why don't you date her and you say, hey, look, I really need to get this chocolate out of the house, but I'll take you out for a chocolate dessert once a week, right? You could use this in your house and say, all right, kids, we're going to get rid of the ice cream. And this is why we're going to get rid of the ice cream. We're going to get rid of the ice cream because X, Y, Z, I have a real conversation with them. Like, in the afternoons, I'm tired, I'm cranky. And, at nighttime, when I'm having the ice cream, it affects my sleep, yada, yada, yada. Like, be real with them. They're pre-adults. They're eventually going to get there. And this is if your kids can understand. If your kids are under 4, then you're going to have an easier time, aren't you? But when you're trying to negotiate, you need to tell the truth and you need to give something back, right? So if you're removing the ice cream, the easy compromise there would be, instead of having ice cream in the house, you can go out for ice cream. And the main thing here is, if you think of foods of in terms of taking you towards your goals and away from your goals, the point that I'm going to end on is, if you want foods in your house that will take you toward your goals, you need to get them here. So if you want to achieve your goals and you want to actually, get that lean, strong, healthy body that you want, you're going to need to get all the foods that take you towards your goal and make them more accessible, more available inside of your direct environment, and easier to access. And then anything that will take you away, you're going to need to make it harder to access. It doesn't mean you don't have them at all. It just means you make it harder to access, right? Because if you haven't defrosted any meat for the night and you are not prepared, you don't have meals in the fridge, chances are, if you're tired, you're stressed and you're hungry, you're going to get takeaway instead of prepping a meal for yourself, right? But if you're prepared, you have the veggies there at least. So you've done the shop and chop, you've got your veggies there, and it makes cooking easier. You'll be more likely to go home and just quickly defrost something and chuck the veggies that are already pre-cut in the fry pan, right? So as you go along through this pillar, you're going to learn more and more about all this. But for this particular lesson, what you need to understand is this whole concept of environment. You will eat whatever is close by. There's no argument. That's just a solid rule on nutrition. You can't beat it. So you need to hack it. You need to work around it, right? You need to, first of all, focus on how to make food that will take you towards your goal more available within these environments, and how to make the foods that will take you away from your goal less available.